Before I begin, what's very important is to take away the confusion, the puzzlement, the bewilderment of people at what is going on. Look, we all know something is happening that has never happened before. And when we take a look at, what Trump is doing, we've never seen anything like that. The speed of change, the way the world is reacting to him, the Democratic Party that seems to be burying themselves. We don't understand what's going on, and of course the victory of Israel over the Arabs and so on. But what I want to tell you now, and I'm going to talk about it obviously in the Shiur and demonstrate how, is all of this is part of the Messianic process. But for you to understand that, you need to understand why and how. And there's certain things that I am going to talk about tonight. Actually, it can actually be called a revelation. It's stuff that you never heard of before, and I'm going to talk about it tonight and reveal these ideas. And that will explain, believe it or not, things which probably will shock you, right? Once you really begin to understand the depth of what the Rabbi Shalom is doing and so on, as you will see. Before I begin, this Shiur should be a blessing and a merit for the health and success of the families of Regina Bas Yosef Ruve and Yeshaya ben Yisrael, Benjamin Wolf ben Tzvihersh Baruch ben Benjamin Wolf, and Shmuel Ruvain ben Regina, of course, should have refuah shalema. And Esther Liba Bas Chaya Yafa should have a complete refuah shalema. Shlomo Leib Ben Fega also should have a complete refuah shalema. Right. And also, I want to add Shimon ben Riva should also have a refuah shalema. In any case, okay, where do we begin? So, the place to begin, of course, is to remind ourselves, because whenever you learn something, you always must see the big picture first, the context in which everything fits. Once you have that big picture, then of course things fall into place and they are logically justified by that what's called big picture and so on. So if you recall, there are three major ideas that redemption is really all about. These are the three major stages of what is called the redemption process or the Messianic process. One, and they will occur sequentially. The first idea is that evil has to be eradicated. It has to be obliterated, annihilated. Basically, it has to be removed, obviously. As long as it exists and as long as it has power to do what it wants to do, there's no such thing as redemption. Now, I'm not defining evil, obviously. I don't want to go that far afield. But we know basically what evil is, and it has to be eradicated. Then the second stage of redemption is that there has to be a change of being. Now, obviously, I'm jumping because we could say the second stage is where the exile ends and the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt and the Shekhinah returns. That's all true, and that's all part of the stage after evil is destroyed, and so on. But I'm jumping ahead to a major stage, and that is that being has to be changed, okay? In other words, and I mentioned this, I gave a whole shiur about this. Being changed means you go from being a physical body with what is called Zoyama to a physical body without Zoyama. That's like Edom Rishon, before the sin. And that is in the Messianic era, after Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. And then you become spiritual. You actually become a spiritual being, which we've talked about. And then after that, you become a divine being, which is the era of Olam Haba. But the main idea is that your being changes, and so on. That's a very important idea. There's a second major change of redemption. But that type of redemption is already beyond what we can envision, and so on. And the third major change, which is concomitant with a change of being, and it's probably the greatest of all changes, because really that's what it leads up to, is a change of consciousness, awareness. What do we really know? What is our reality perception, right? Consciousness. And obviously we go from a state of many beings or multiple beings, and we realize in the end that there is only God, right? Besides God, there is nothing else. And not only do we realize that in whatever form we will be thinking in the Olam Haba, but we actually experience God as as a being that is the only thing that really exists. And we actually experience that. And we don't even know how that happens or what it means. But that is the ultimate consciousness, and so on. Anyway, so this is the three major steps that takes place, and it defines the redemption process. Okay, now going more into the individual steps. Obviously I'm going to leave out the last two, is the concept of evil. Okay, and that is divided into substages. One, evil has to be removed, and I mean really removed. The actors, the players, the bad people, or evil in and of itself, even by good people, has to be removed. That's number one. Not only does it have to be removed, but it has to be replaced with good. You see. And good means to be concerned, which is interesting. Good means to be concerned with enhancing and improving being of oneself and of others. That's what the good basically really is. But in any case, evil has to be replaced with good. Then the third part of that is where the good itself has to reach a higher level. So once evil is gone, and then there's good, then the good itself has different levels, okay, of intensity and form. So it has to elevate and go from a low amount to a much higher amount. So I would say that's the third stage. And the last stage is something which is very interesting, which will happen, by the way, is that the concept of evil, or the idea of evil, will be removed from creation. That means you won't even be able to think of evil. It doesn't exist anymore as a concept, right? That negative idea, that negation of good, won't exist. So you can't be evil because you don't even know what it is. You cannot imagine that type of behavior called evil. And that will only happen, obviously, after the Zoyama, after the Tchias HaMesim, Because when the Satan dies, which he will die, or certainly he will cease his operations, then what that means is not that the Satan ceases, but the idea or the concept lingers on. No, the concept doesn't exist anymore. So you cannot even imagine doing it because you cannot conceive of it. And we don't even know what that means. But God, just like who allows evil? Well, God created the possibility of evil. You see, that itself is a nivra, is a creation. So what God do is he will remove it. He will yank it out of creation. And guess what? If he does, you cannot conceive of it. Right? It's not available to be thought about at all because it doesn't exist. That is the ultimate state of the removal of evil. So I'm just telling you the different substages of the removal of evil itself. And then obviously there will only be good, and in its highest form, which will be incredible righteousness, and I really mean incredible righteousness and incredible holiness, right? And incredible divinity, which we can only begin to imagine and so on. Any case, this is redemption. It's not just world peace. That's the beginning of redemption. Redemption means to be freed from all kinds of negative concepts and ideas, and certainly human behavior. Okay, so we have a handle on geula, redemption. Now, of course, to us, it means very simple, the end of exile, right, obviously, the introduction or the rebuilding of the temple, right, the restoration of the divine presence, the Shekhinah. And of course it means the restoration of the Jewish people to Torah greatness. That's certainly part of the redemption, you see. And once the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt and so on, then of course you have Mashiach. And as I mentioned last time, or whatever, we are now in the beginning of the Messianic age. And I talked about that, I think it was a previous year, last year, whatever, that Aschalta de Geula, the beginning of redemption, has started. And I mentioned November 5th, which is the election. And I will show you what that means shortly, what's really happening in that sense. Okay, so we now have a handle. I brought you up to speed in terms of what the Geula is, its generic idea, its specifics, and also the concept of evil and so on. Now, I want to tell you something which most people don't know. And so in a certain sense, it's a revelation. But I feel it will explain to you what is happening today in America, as you will see. Do you ever wonder, Moshe v'Aaron, why was there Aaron? Who was Moshe Rabbeinu really? And Moshe Rabbeinu obviously is the Mashiach, because his job, or what he was tasked to do, is Messianic. To take the Jews out of Egypt, which is to take them out of Golos, exile, to bring them to Israel, to give them the Torah, right? And introduce a whole different Tekufa, period of time, you see. So that's Messianic. Who was he? He is Mashiach ben Yosef. That's really who he really was. And he would have been Mashiach if it wasn't for the sin of the golden calf. I've said that many times and so on, right? And therefore, once Jews sinned with the golden calf, he had to remove himself from that possibility. And ultimately, we have to continue the process, ultimately to bring Mashiach ben Yosef. And then after Mashiach ben Yosef, of course, Mashiach ben David. But you ever wonder who's Aaron? But what's even more puzzling is not only we know Aaron is his brother, it's obviously. But why was there a necessity for Aaron to join Moshe? Aaron wasn't just his brother. You know, some guy lives in New York and his brother lives in California. You know, they're brothers, but they hardly see each other and so on. Aaron was a fundamental fabric, key to the redemption. In fact, it would be interesting to know Moshe Rabbeinu, whatever you want to call it, had a speech impediment. So when Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, I can't speak, how am I going to convince Parai? You know, I'm not a speaker, and so on. And it does require a gift of eloquence. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, don't worry, Aaron will do it. It would be interesting to know, well, what happens if Aaron wasn't around? What happens if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have a brother like Aaron? Well, okay, that's interesting to think about and so on. But what I'd rather think about is, who is he? Why was he part of the Messianic process? And he was. Aaron was a critical figure in the whole redemption process. Now, I'm not looking at Aaron as a Kohen Gadol. You know, that's what Aaron was gifted with, that enormous matana, to be the oved, to be the one who was the chief service operator in the Beis HaMikdash. I'm looking at Aaron initially, you see, who was part of the redemption itself. So the question then, who is he? And I will tell you who he was, okay? From a spiritual standpoint, people do not realize that there are two Mashiach ben Yosefs. That's what people don't understand. Not that they don't understand, they don't realize that. Aaron was Mashiach ben Yosef. But wait a minute, so was Moshe. And the answer is, you're right. There are two Mashiach ben Yosefs. Right. That's really what it is. So we find, therefore, that the Mashiach ben Yosef has a partner. Where do we see this? Which is interesting. You know, two Mashiach ben Yosefs? Yes. Because they basically both have individual jobs. And that's what it takes to end the Golus. You see, the job of Moshe Rabbeinu is to bring down the ore, to bring down the Shekhinah to the earth, to bring down the Shekhinah to the Jewish people. He was the giver of the law, that we know. That was his job. And therefore he received the Torah, because that's his job. His job is to interface with spirituality, with God, divinity, and to bring it down almost like a filter to mankind. You need that's a special type of work. You need a special type of neshama for that. The highest levels of prophecy. And that was his job, you see? But there's a second job, which is interesting. And job is what? Okay, the divine is now down. But how do you broadcast it? How do you transmit it to man? You see, we're not looking here at one person. We're looking at the entire Jewish people. Or we're looking at the entire mankind. Who transmits? You see, that's a special job. That needs a speaker. Right. So Moshe Rabbeinu's job didn't require him to have eloquency in speech. It did require him to have the highest level of prophecy. You see? But Aaron HaKohen's job was also Mashiach ben Yosef, was to bring these ideas to the Jewish people. And like the Gemara says, he is the main figure in the transmission of the oral law. Aaron HaKohen. The whole Torah was really, when you think about it, was transmitted not from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe would bring it to Aaron, and then Aaron would bring it to the elders. And there's a whole Gemara in the air of him, how it was transmitted. But Moshe taught it to Aaron, right? And then Aaron taught it to his sons, who then taught it to the 70 elders, whatever it is. But the one who transmitted, who made it known to Klal Yisrael, is Aaron HaKohen. Now, what is interesting is, wait a minute, that's very interesting. If Moshe was the main Mashiach ben Yosef, then Aaron would not have been as great as Moshe. But there's a very interesting posik, you see, in Vo'era, you see, where it says, and God spoke, Vayidam Hashem el Moshe lemor, that's what V'yel Aaron. Whenever Rabbi Hashem speaks, it says, and God spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Fine. But in one place it says, and God spoke to Aaron and Moshe. Change the order. So Rashi's bothered by that. Why did the Moshe change the order? It always says God spoke to Moshe, right? Because he was the receiver. And then Moshe would tell it to Aaron. That's the way it always went. But here was a pasuk that said, and God spoke to Aaron, right? And Moshe. Which means he said it to Aaron, and Aaron said it to Moshe, right? What does that mean? So Rashi says that. Rashi says, Shkulim, they were equal. That's the mistake that people make. Aaron was not a subsidiary. He was not inferior in any way to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was as holy and as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. It's astounding. Do you know what that is? Shkulim, they were equal. And the Torah shows you by saying, well, it could have been, and God spoke to Aaron, spoke to Moshe. That is the limud. That is the lesson. That's incredible when you think about that. So then what was the difference? The difference was the roles that they played, you see. But the reason why they were equal is because they were both Mashiach ben Yosef. Right. There are two Mashiach ben Yosefs, correct. They both have the job of what? Of bringing holiness, Torah, to the Jewish people. Except it requires two sub-roles. One to receive and the other to transmit. So therefore they have different talents and abilities. Most people have never heard of this. What? There are two Mashiachs? But that's what it means. Shkulim heim, they're equal, you see. So we now know something very, very interesting. That the job of Mashiach ben Yosef is had by two people, not one, you see. Now sometimes we know who the one is, less often we know who the second one is. But there are always two people, individuals, who have that role. Okay, I hope I didn't shock too many people by saying this. In any case, and now we understand the dichotomy, or the fact that there are many dualities here, because you're really looking at two different roles, and so on. And I'm not going to analyze that, because that would be too difficult. But let me just point out some of the different roles. Okay? Yeah. Well, the first duality we find, which is interesting, Edom started off as one, and it was really supposed to be only one. Problem is he sinned, so therefore that created two roles. One is to get rid of evil, which he introduced, and the second task he had, right, was then to bring down Kedusha, holiness. So therefore you have the following duos, if you want to use that word. Cain and Hevel. Interesting. Two, Cain and Hevel. Both of which were assigned that task. You see? So those are two, if you want to look at it, the original Mashiach ben Yosef's is Cain and Hevel, which of course went terribly awry. The second duality is Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu. Avraham Avinu was Chesed, and Yitzchak was Gevura. You see, again, there's a duality here, because both are in that concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Then you have Yaakov and Esav, which I've dwelt on for a long time. Both of them were Mashiach ben Yosef. And the interesting thing about it, that even though Yaakov, his job was to learn Torah, which is to bring down, to receive the Torah, and Esav's job was to transmit it to the entire world. He was Yoshev Holam, a dweller of tents, which is the job like Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And Esav's job is to bring it to the world, to transmit it. You see, that's the second job. So Yaakov and Esav were partners, which I've spoken about. And of course, Esav became a Rasha and so on. So what did the Rosham do? He had to give the job of Esav, which basically is Mashiach ben Yosef. But just Yaakov was also Mashiach ben Yosef. So Yaakov took over the full job of Mashiach ben Yosef. And that was because Esav reneged on the whole responsibility. And of course, we know ultimately what happened was that Yaakov cannot do two jobs. So the one who did the second job, who took over Esav's jobs, it went away from Yaakov and went to Yosef. So Yosef became Mashiach ben Yosef. And of course, he transmitted the whole tradition to Egypt and to the Jewish people after they went down. So it's interesting how you see the dichotomies here and the dualities of these different figures and so on, you see. Then, of course, you have the next duality, or duos, is Moshe v'Aaron, as I pointed out. But this has been going on a long time, these dualities of this task, who receives and who transmits, and so on, you know. Then you have the next duality, Shaul and David, right, and so on. It's interesting. Shaul was Mashiach ben Yosef, and David was also Mashiach ben Yosef. But what's interesting about David is he's also Mashiach ben David, or he's the root soul of David. But David can be Yosef also, just like Yaakov became Esav, and so on. So you have that duality and so on, you know. What comes out of all this is something very fascinating. And I would like to say it. Whoever Mashiach ben Yosef is today, since we always know that there are two of them, because you have these two roles of fighting evil and introducing holiness and so on, right? It would seem that whoever's going to be Mashiach ben Yosef today, there will be two of them, right? Not one, but two. Because that seems to be the setup of Mashiach ben Yosef and so on, you know. This is what we see and so on, you know. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, which is very interesting, you know, is that there is a third Mashiach, which is really Mashiach ben Yosef, but it's sort of like a part of the idea of Mashiach ben Yosef. Who was that? That was Shimshon. Shimshon, the great, the Novi Shimshon, that's who he was. Of course, we know him as, you know, phenomenal strength and so on. But he was an incredible Baruch HaKodesh and so on. And he was called Mashiach ben Dan, because he comes from the Shevet Dan. In fact, when Yaakov was giving out the brachas, right, he refers to Shimshon, because he thought he was the Mashiach, you see, because he was Messianic. He had tremendous koyach to destroy evil, you see. The problem was, which is always a problem, is that he was ensnared by the Satan with a wife of the Plishtim and so on. And whatever, he obviously sinned in whatever, and he wasn't roy for that. So he failed. So that's when Yaakov Avinu realized, you know. So first he gives a bracha about Dan, Yaakov Avinu and Vayechi, that the Dan will be in many ways a redeemer. But then he realized, Ruach HaKodesh, that Shimshon didn't make it as Mashiach ben Dan, which is really Mashiach ben Yosef. And therefore he says, L'shioscha kavis Hashem. We wait for your salvation, you see. But there is a sub-heading of Mashiach ben Yosef called Mashiach ben Dan. Well, part of the problem, when you think about that, is Mashiach ben Yosef, or Yosef HaTzadik, without getting into it, sinned by Potiphar's wife. Okay, he sinned at a certain level. It wasn't completely clear of that incident and so on. So as a result of that, well, that's one of the reasons why Mashiach ben Yosef has to die. Well, that was the original decree. But what took place is something very interesting. In order to remove that, the Rebbe Hashem chose two other people that were right to be Mashiach ben Yosef, Nadav and Avihu. In fact, Moshe Rabbeinu says something very interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron, I thought that the Rebbe Hashem would take us, for whatever reason and so on, to sanctify his name. Instead, he took Nadav Avihu. So apparently, they filled in for the death of Mashiach ben Yosef and so on. In any case, this is what we see and so on, you know. But in any case, what we now see is the concept that Mashiach ben Yosef is really two people having different roles in that setup and so on, you know. Well, we could begin to think, or we can begin to ask ourselves, say, wait a minute, if that's the case, right, that Mashiach ben Yosef is really two people, and we see that the original is Moshe v'Aaron and so on. And if that's true by Moshe v'Aaron, as it says, Hine go'alti eschem achris koreshes, behold, I will redeem you, right? The last cooler will be like the first, right? We say that in Kiddush of Shabbos, of Musaf. Then what would make sense is what? If that is the case, that in the first Geula, Moshe v'Aaron too, then that's probably the last Geula will be like the first. Just like the first had two Mashiachim at the same time, which is interesting. So the last Geula will also have two people who are Mashiachs. In any case, now, so we now begin to realize something very interesting. I have mentioned many times the saga or the story of Trump and so on, right? The concept that Esav wanted to do tshuva. We know the story. I have mentioned it many times. He wanted to do tshuva, but Yaakov Avinu didn't realize that, so he went back to his old ways. So because Esav wanted to do tshuva, the Baruch said, in the end of time, you will do tshuva. You will go back to your original role of Rav Yavoitzoya, that the older will serve the younger, you see, which means that you will actually assist whoever the Mashiach ben Yosef is, you will assist that person, you see. So that is what Trump, and based on all of this, that Esav will return to assist Mashiach ben Yosef in bringing the redemption, I stated that that is Trump's role. That Trump, in many ways, is a gilgal, as far as I'm concerned. Trump is a gilgal of Esav himself, you see. And therefore, I predicted years already that he would win. Not only that he would win, right, but that he would change. He would combat evil. He's the Tov Sheba Esav. He's a good part of Esav, doing tshuva, and he will combat the evil of Esav, the real evil of Esav, which of course is the Democratic Party and the whole former administrations and so on, and that he would combat them, and it all happened. Everything is basically coming true. What I had predicted, based on these ideas and so on, you know. So that is a very important concept, you see. By the way, and that's who Trump is. Of course he's not Jewish. He's not Mashiach ben Yosef. But his job is Rav Yavoitzoya. his job is to assist Mashiach ben Yosef, you see, in order to bring the Geula. What's amazing is that that's exactly what he's doing and so on. By the way, what's interesting, and we've never seen that before, Trump is the most powerful president we've ever seen. Everybody shakes at Trump. Everybody wants to see this man. I mean, even before he became president, everybody was going to Mar-a-Lago. It was incredible. That was the White House. They all abandoned Biden, and they're all going to Trump and so on, you see. Because, so the question is, what is this? We've never seen this type of homage applied to a president. I mean, a president is a very powerful figure, but this is way out of the ordinary. Everybody was running to see Trump. Not only that, nobody wants to oppose him. Everybody's afraid of him, you see. So the question then is what does this all mean? And what is very interesting, if you think about it, there's a chazal that say that a person should always run to see, right, a king of the Goyim, and to see the honor, the dignity that is bestowed on a king. Why? Because this is nothing compared to the honor and dignity and glory that will be bestowed on the Mashiach. And therefore, if you want to get an inkling, a glimpse, in terms of what will be, you should run to see royalty and the beauty, the incredible honor that is given to them, you know. You get a glimpse of it, not here in America, but in England, where you have the royalty and so on, you know. The tremendous honor that was bestowed to Elizabeth and so on, you know, and how the royalty is treated and so on. But that's a very weak form, because it's really it's a constitutional monarchy and so on, you know. But the honor that will be given to a king, if you want to see what it's going to be like by the Mashiach himself, you should run to see royalty among kings. You probably can get a real taste of that. You know, somebody like Louis XIV. I mean, he was like incredible. I mean, how he was king of France for 70 years or something like that. But the honor that was given to him, you know, I was once in Versailles. I'd gone to France, you know. So, you know, you figure Versailles, it's nice, it's a palace. You have no idea of what that building is. If you are in France, check out Versailles, which is right outside of Paris and so on and so forth. You can't believe the grounds are incredible. And the palace is beyond belief, you know. And who was this guy really when you think about that? And so on, you know. But you realize that the treatment that he got was off the charts. So Chazal tell us, if you want to have an inkling, a sample of that type of glory, check out a Goyish king. And from that you could begin to think about what the Mashiach, the Melech HaMashiach, will receive. And so on, you see. So therefore, if you now think about that, well, if Trump's job is Messianic, even though he's not Jewish, but he's a Messianic figure, he's a Mashiach ben Edom, right? An Edomite Messianic figure to assist Mashiach ben Yosef and so on and so forth. So he automatically, that glory, that incredible homage will be applied to him, will also be Messianic, right? And that's the understanding of what's happening. Because his job is to assist Mashiach ben Yosef in terms of combating evil, because that's really what his job is and so on. To combat evil, to reveal it for what it is, you see. Therefore, that type of glory rubs off on him, right? That's why we're looking at something that's never happened like this. The president should have such an honor, such an incredible, majesty and so on. Yes, because he's not just the president. He's a president acting in the manner of a messianic figure, right? Esav doing tshuva. That's where that comes from, you see. But anything. But you could see also that the characteristics of Trump is what assigns him this role. Look, the Russia made him rich. So he's not afraid of anybody. He has tremendous amount of money. And he has the confidence that goes with people who are very rich, you know. Not only that, he has a trait of being tremendously defiant. He's defiant. He does what he wants. He says what he wants. He's not afraid. He has that characteristic, which is an essential feature of somebody who's going to fight evil, you see. Also, tremendous courage. He's bright. He has almost unlimited energy, you see. He has tremendous amount of energy. All of this is a divine gift, because that's his role, is to fight evil, right? To expose it. And that's fundamentally what he's doing. He's also very successful. You know, even where he failed, that was basically to teach him a lesson. But he's been a very successful, he's world known. He's among the most famous people of all time, if you really think about that, and so on, you know. And also miracles happened to him. The fact that he was saved twice from an assassin's bullet is incredible when you think about that, you know. Because he probably is a gilgal of Esav. That's what he is basically, you see. And that's why I say that Aschalta de Gula started. He is the Esav that has to do tshuva and combat evil. Which, when you think about that, is very, very interesting and so on. And like I say, his job, based on the divine plan, is to expose evil and so on, you see. But it's not only to expose evil, it's to expose evildoers. Who are the ones who do it, you see? And also how the depths of evil, which is being exposed now with this new program called Doge. So what the Rebbe has done is he has given him two interesting groups. The first group is his cabinet. He has had tremendous success in all his cabinet selections have been chosen. Because in order for him to be successful, he needs men of courage, including Tulsi Gabbard and so on, you know, people of tremendous skill, assertiveness, aggressiveness, that really are sincere about changing America. How many times as a cabinet figure, a nobody, right? He's weak, he's timid. But all the guys that he's picked, I mean, you can go through them, all of these guys are top-notch guys. That requires tremendous amount of siyata d'shmaya, divine assistance, to have the right team. Because that's what his job is. So that's what the Rebbe has done. But there's something else that I want to mention, which I believe to be very true, and in a certain sense, shocking. If there are two Mashiach ben Yosefs, right? So if Trump is a messianic figure, right, and he is an assistant to the Mashiach ben Yosef, he also has to have two people. Who was the second guy? And I venture to say, it's going to be shocking, Elon Musk. You don't realize what Elon Musk is, you know? There are so many people that hate him. That itself is messianic, and so on. Elon Musk is very interesting. Do you have any idea? He's the world's richest man. $450 billion. That is unheard of in the annals of history, right? $450 billion. He's certainly the richest man in the world. He's probably the richest man who ever lived. You don't get that kind of money unless it's been divinely ordained. Why would God give this guy this type of wealth? Not only that, when you look at Elon Musk, okay, you realize It's incredible, what Elon Musk is. His character is incredible. He's defiant, very bright, defiant, right? Not only that, he can transmit whatever he wants. He owns Twitter, right? He actually owns Twitter, you see? And not only that, not only does he have that characteristic, right? And he's wealthy and so on, but he's incredibly successful, you see. And he's willing to go through pain, and he's dedicated to do what? What he's doing is astounding. His Doge is destroying the Democratic Party. It's what it's doing. So not only is it destroying the Democratic Party, he now has the idea there are many Democrats, core Democrats, that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But all they make, I'll give you one example, Nancy Pelosi. She makes, I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 a year from a salary. Yet she's worth $200 million. So the question is, excuse me, where do you get $200 million from a salary, Where does this come from? So obviously it probably means that she has insider trading. I mean, I believe so. I don't know for sure. But he's now going to investigate her. Then you have Schumer. Then you have other guys who are worth fortunes in money, and they only make, what do they make, $200,000 as a salary? Biden, they say he's worth $30-40 million. And what's his salary? $400,000 a year? How is that possible? So he is now going to investigate the doers, the Democratic Party doers, the people who are the principals of the Democratic Party. And then his investigation of U.S. aid. People cannot believe $40 billion on what? It's like beyond belief what these people have spent it on. I don't want to go through the list. You can't even believe the list, what they spent millions of dollars on nonsense, billions of dollars on nonsense. How many people in America would have benefited from all that money? Especially the people that were hit in the hurricane region and so on, and the earthquakes, whatever, and so on. How many people could have used that money and they give it away to shtus, countries that do nothing? They gave how many millions of dollars of tourism in Egypt? Well, America doesn't deserve this? I don't want to go into all the incredible thing what U.S. aid has done. But one thing, what Elon Musk has exposed is not only the doers themselves, the principles themselves, but also in terms of what they've done is outlandish, outrageous. And really, in my opinion, it's a criminal enterprise. That's what people are waking up to. And the incredible thing is they're all trying to defend their actions. No, what do you mean? You're not supposed to change. You can't look at the records and so on. I mean, people cannot believe. What are you doing? You're fighting a guy who wants to save taxpayers trillions of dollars when America anyway is in a very dangerous position because of the debt. Do you know that the debt, that the payment that America pays every year in interest is $1 trillion? Imagine paying interest, $1 trillion. Do you know what $1 trillion is? No, it's a word. But I'll tell you, if I had $100 bills and I had a stack of $1 million, that stack would be 40 inches. That's all. 40 inches, $100 bills to equal $1 million. How high would that stack be if instead of the $100, instead of, right, $1 million, it would be $1 trillion. And the answer is 674 miles. That's how high the stack would be of $100 bills if it was $1 trillion. Could you imagine that America owes $36 trillion? And every year it goes up by another $2 or $3 trillion. America cannot sustain that. they will go bankrupt. The world will no longer look at the dollar as the reserve currency and so on. America is in a very dangerous position economically. So this is what they're doing to the American dollar. It's just beyond belief. It looks clearly, in my opinion, no question about that, the Democratic Party is a criminal enterprise. It's always been that way. Certainly now this way and so on, you see. And people realize that, and so on. So Musk is exposing the unbelievable evil. He's not exposing the evil of a particular person only. He's talking about the Democratic Party. He's exposing the evil of an entire group of people. That's Messianic, right? But it's him and Trump. And what you notice about both of these guys is they work together. Even though both of them are very strong personalities, you see. And it would seem, therefore, that Elon Musk is the second Mashiach ben Yosef of Edom, right? Just like Trump is of Edom, Elon Musk is probably the second one. And together, they are working together, which is absolutely beyond belief, and how well it's working out and so on, you see. In any case, so these are very important ideas. So we realize what they are doing is not just destroying or opposing an individual member of the Democratic Party. They are ripping to shreds the credibility, the legitimacy of the whole party itself. That's what they're doing. And really, when you think about that, that's exactly what the task is of Mashiach ben Yosef, especially the assistant to Mashiach ben Yosef, which is really what Esav is, which is interesting, and so on, you know. So this is what's, is that the depths, the disgrace, and the treachery of the Democratic Party is being revealed totally by Trump and Elon Musk, which is really fascinating when you think about that. So we are watching Hashkafa de Gula slowly play out. That Trump and his partner, Shutaf, whatever, Elon Musk, are destroying the principles of the Democratic Party, okay? And he's revealing the extent of chicanery, falsehood, right, and theft of this party, and the evil that they've done to the average American taxpayer. I mean, it's beyond belief. You know, one would expect almost that the American people would rise up, right? You have an idea how many years this has been going on, and nobody's done anything and so on, you know? They estimate that the amount of fraud, I heard this, the amount of fraud and waste and abuse of Joe Biden in his 4 years has been $1 trillion. Could you imagine that kind of a sum being wasted through fraud, through absolute stupidity and nonsense? Can you imagine what that means? We can't. Really, they should be investigated and thrown in jail, all of them. Because, I mean, how do you do that? You know, people have trusted you, the Democratic Party. How do you stab people in the back? It's a mockery. It's a mockery to the average American citizen, right? Who's doing that? Trump and Musk. And I believe those are the two Mashiachim of Edom that is there to assist the Mashiach ben Yosef. Now what he will do, Mashiach ben Yosef, of course, he will handle the Ruchnius, of course. You know, they will remove the evil, and he will he and Mashiach ben Yosef, whoever he is, and so on, they will handle the Ruchnius by ending the Golus, by having build the Beis Hamikdash, which will happen before Mashiach ben David. The Gemara actually says that, and so on. They will bring down the Shekhinah. And then you're going to have the Mashiach ben David. You see, because the real task of Mashiach ben Yosef is the revelation of the Nun Shari Bina, the 50 gates of wisdom. That is the Messianic light. That's really what the task of Mashiach ben Yosef is. And like I said, you have one who brings it down, which is the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, and one who transmits it to bring it to people, which is the second Mashiach ben Yosef, and so on. And then Mashiach ben David, he will execute. He's the executor of all this. He's the king. He will run Judaism as an unbelievable nation of prophets. And that's really what's going to happen. So there you are. We are actually seeing, but we don't realize what we're looking at. We are looking at two basic figures, of which is shocking the American people, who is destroying not a member of the Democratic Party. They are destroying the Democratic Party itself, the core sheker. They are exposing the principles as thugs, as conniving scoundrels and so on. And they are exposing, what they've done, how they've made fools of the American citizen, the American taxpayer. I'm not even going into Biden, what he's done. I mean, this man destroyed America. It's going to take years to undo the evil and the treachery of this person is beyond belief and so on, But the only way that could happen, it's never happened before in that way. People have been exposed, members, and so on. But this is the party itself is being destroyed. And that is Messianic. And that's really the job of Mashiach, of Mashiach ben Yosef. And the one who does it for Mashiach ben Yosef is the Messiah, Mashiach of Edom, the Edomite Messiah, both, which I'm saying, is both Donald Trump and Elon Musk and so on. And now we understand something which I've said before. We can ask a question. Why is Purim 2 days? It's basically one war. If it's one war, there should be 1 day. You commemorate, right? Since the last battle was fought on the 14th, so the 15th becomes Shushan Purim, right? So you have 1 day to celebrate. Why did Chazal make this distinction that there are 2 days to celebrate Purim? That's a very valid question, because we're not talking about many wars. We're doing one war. Just there was fighting in different places, and in Shushan there was another day of fighting. That if you make 2 days, and the answer is that when you level evil, when you destroy evil, you have to be aware of something, and you'll see what I want to say. You have to be aware of the fact that, when you fight evil and you win, who or whom have you won against? So normally you win against a member of the evil group. Fine. Groups, movements have evil members. So you fight the members and so on. But what Chazal realized is not only did they fight Persia, the Persians that wanted to kill the Jews, which are, the outlier members of the people that want to kill the Jews, but they've killed also the Haman's family and the Amalekis of Shushan. That is the headquarters of the evil of Haman. But they realized if the Rebbe has allowed us not only to kill the outlying evil people of Amalek, but also that people who hold from Amalek and what he wants to do, but he's also allowed us to kill the core evil, the headquarters itself, then that's a greater form of ness. And therefore that requires a greater, a second day to commemorate that there are two levels of destruction of evil. One is the members of the evil group itself. Fine. So that's like fighting an army and beating the soldiers. But what happens if you can invade the actual palace and kill the king himself? That's a different level of victory. That's a ness, a tremendous ness, because it requires a permission by the Rabbi Shalom to do that. And that's why you never really hear of Amalek afterwards. That's the last real, time you hear about Amaleki, who's in charge of being able to destroy the Jews and so on, But in any case, that's why they made 2 days. What we are witnessing is something highly unusual. And that's why it's Messianic. We're not witnessing, where individual members of the Democratic Party are being vilified and proven to be nothing more than thugs and crooks and so on. See, we are witnessing the destruction of the party itself. That's the headquarters. We are witnessing the destruction of the core principles. These people that have stolen from the American taxpayer the actual principles, the main operators of the Democratic Party. We are witnessing that, you see, and we are therefore witnessing not only that, but they are being exposed as to what they did. If you want to understand what they did, how do you do that? I mean, where is your responsibility for the money that you've been collecting from the American public? Why do you do this to people? How do you take their money and give it to some country so they can have LGBTQ, whatever they have, right? Plays. For what? How do you, if you look at the roster of things that they gave money to, your blood boils. Because most of them are stupid. They're nonsense. And they have nothing to do with American interests. Nothing. And you realize that America has been had. That's really what it is. That America has been made fools of by a bunch of thugs. It's a criminal enterprise. That's what they're destroying. And this is only the beginning. He's only president for 4 weeks. He's got another, 3 years, and 11 months to go. Trump and so on, That can only happen if it's Messianic, right? And therefore we are witnessing that. The destruction of the Democratic Party, you see. And the one who's doing such an incredible job, of course, is Elon Musk. Because Trump said, it's your show. Do whatever you want. And he has tremendous. And the beauty of it is that he has one of the most sophisticated social media, Twitter. I mean, he could do whatever and say whatever he wants. Nobody can shut him out and so on, And Trump also has been granted a tremendous cabinet. That shows you God says to him, do it. Destroy this evil party that has destroyed the morals of America, the ethics of America. That's what they have done, And I now give you permission and the wherewithal to destroy them. And that's what's happening, and so on and so forth. And that's why I say the Aschalta de Geula happened on November 5th. And we are watching that. You see, the headquarters of evil, the Democratic Party. Thank God Joe Biden is no more. And he will get his reward, in quotes, what he did to the United States. And not only that, what he did to morality and how much pain and agony and abortions that has been allowed under his jurisdiction and so on. In any case, this is what we're witnessing. So the main thing is, hey, take heart. This is the Messianic process. This isn't just Trump and Elon Musk. This is exactly what the script is. This is exactly what it is. To destroy evil, as I said, to remove evil, you see, right? And to replace it with good. And they're doing it. So that's what you have to focus on. You're watching the Messianic process, but initially it's by the assistance to the Mashiach ben Yosef. It is being done by the Mashiach ben Edom of Edom. And that's why it will succeed. And that is why the whole world, right, is enraptured because of Trump. And they can't believe what Musk is doing and so on. But they have been granted tremendous siyata d'shmaya to do their job. So look, we have to in certain ways rejoice that the process has started and it's working. It's being done against the Democratic Party, against evil. Look, Joe Biden is kicked out. He was in tremendous disgrace. And not only him, but that other nobody, Harris. Same thing with her. God has disgraced both of them, you see. And they have to live this down. They were booted out by the American people and so on. And that is a disgrace to both of them for the evil that they've done, certainly to America and so on. We just have to hope that the next phase of this operation is Israel and the Erev Rav. Because what is happening in Israel is terrible. There is a war against the Torah itself, okay, where there's a tremendous opposition to people learning Torah. And like I've said, the public school system in Israel is 1.5 million kids. That's the whole future of Eretz Israel, okay? And they know nothing. Hardly anything about religion is taught in the public schools, which is an unbelievable travesty, you see, of which all these people will be severely punished one day. So we have to hope that this will end and that the Supreme Court, which is really a tremendous rebellion against God and so on, will all be put aside, and the Erev Rav will be not just destroyed, but put aside, or they will become defunct altogether, and that Torah will be restored to Klal Yisrael by Mashiach ben Yosef, whoever that is, and whoever the two people are that will arise and change Klal Yisrael and so on. Thank you.